Hello, friends. We are having a day today. So we're going to just jump right into the intro, bring on Dr. Susan and move forward. But happy to have you here. Those of you who are here on Replay Crew, you are also welcome. Make sure you hit that like button and let's get going.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome, Susan.
Good to see you every week, Nicole.
How are you doing this week?
I am doing well, thank you. Lots of exciting things to talk about.
I'm having an ADHD day.
Oh, dear.
Having my physical body is messing with my ADHD day. So first thing I'm going to do is take off all of these things that are driving me crazy because sensory is going nuts. And I've got a Diet Coke and we're going to do the dang thing.
Yes, we are.
All right. Introduce yourself real quick for those people who are new.
Hello, everyone listening live or on replay. I'm Dr. Susan Blumberg. I'm a former psychologist who's been a life skills and executive functioning coach for parents, teens, and young adults for, can you believe it, 10 years now, Nicole. My LinkedIn birthday came up. That's how I remember. And I work with families who are struggling with organization and planning skills, communication, and launching into the next stage of their lives, whether that's high school, college, or into adulthood. I'm also the parent of 2 twice exceptional kids, that is, kids who are both gifted and carry one or many disability labels, as it's the majority of my practice. And I am very excited that I'm also an 11-year anniversary. I admin the Parents of 2E or Twice Exceptional Children Facebook group. We have over 28,000 international members.
That's awesome. In fact, I remember because we met on Clubhouse back in 2020 during pandemic times, and I was already a member of that group and had been for a long time. And we hadn't connected that way, but I remember you mentioning, I was like, oh, I know that group. I've been in there forever.
Yes, I took over from the creator in 2014, and with a perfectly wonderful group of moderators that perhaps I can get you to join one day.
Maybe.
We have an extremely supportive and wonderful group of parents of twice exceptional kids from all over the world.
Yeah, it's a great resource. A lot of good information. If you are a parent of a twice exceptional kid or think you might be, if you want to set, let's see, I'll grab that link and I'll drop it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
And you can head over to that Facebook group because it is a great resource.
I was thinking about it this morning because we have a regular input of people joining our group. And what's really important is that you understand we're very strict about our criteria. We don't take kids who are high achievers. We don't take kids who are just gifted. We don't just take kids who are autistic and hyperlexic. We really are strict about our criteria being twice exceptional That means being gifted and having one or more disability labels. And the reason is that twice exceptional kids experience specific obstacles because of this combination of challenges at one end of the bell curve and the other end of the bell curve. And we really look to support this particular group in that Facebook support group. And having two kids in their 20s now, one is going to turn 30 in a few months. Myself, who carry those labels, I can say that I both professionally and personally understand what it's like.
Yeah, and it is a different world, that twice exceptional thing. And it is, I mean, even two of my kids went through most of elementary school in magnet gifted programs. And, we're the handful of 3 or 4 kids in a class of 30 that were the twice exceptional kids. And even the gifted teachers, some of them are better than others, but they don't really always know how to handle these twice exceptional kids. So we ended up with a lot of behavior problems that were, mislabeled. And that's, the process. We ended up on 504s and IEPs to make sure that they stayed in the placement that was best for them. And it's a real challenge. So, that was when we started bringing an advocate to our meetings, because, there's got to be a place for these kids, and it can be really hard to educate school systems on twice exceptional kids. So
yes.
I recommend joining that group if that's something. And as an undiagnosed twice exceptional kid myself, I knew I was gifted. I didn't know about the ADHD part until much later. And I was never formally tested as a kid apart from just entrance into certain programs, which my parents opted not to put me in those programs for a variety of reasons. I was in kind of just a small gifted program in my homeschool. It wasn't a full day gifted program, but it wasn't until much later that I did some testing and went, oh, it was real gifted. Okay. So it's a process, and it's something I think, we spent a lot of time last year advocating in our local school district for twice exceptional kids as they were making some huge changes to the gifted program in our school district. They were going to eliminate third grade, and we ended up with this group of parents being able to get them to not only keep third grade in the few schools that they had it, but expand it. So they had 12 4th through 6th grade gifted programs in the district, and only 4 of those had third grade. So we were trying to get them they were trying to eliminate third grade.
When you said eliminate third grade, I suddenly had this picture of elementary schools with no third grade programs at all.
Just the gifted program.
It took me a second there.
Eliminate the gifted third grade, the magnet third grade, and not start it until 4th grade. Instead, they ended up expanding
it's way too late.
all of those
locations in 4th grade.
I know, to add third grade. The next battle will be getting to go down to 1st.
Well, let's come back to this and put it on our list of topics for the future. I don't want to sidetrack us because we have so much to talk about already.
Yes.
But organizational skills, which are our topic for today, are a huge difficulty, whether you're gifted, twice exceptional, or have a variety of disability labels, including ADHD. And one of the reasons it's such a struggle for twice exceptional kids as well is because when your a brain is tumbling around with so many ideas, and then it's difficult if you have ADHD, autism, or even learning disabilities to keep your materials and your ideas coordinated in any way. And whenever Nicole gets on here like she did today and said, I had an ADHD day today, I take that to mean, Nicole, that your brain was uncoordinated, your body was uncoordinated, and your home was uncoordinated. Did I interpret that correctly?
Yes. And that is generally how I roll anyway. Those 3 things are pretty much a constant, but some days it's worse than others. Today
so
is one of those days.
I think it's so important that we talk about organizational skills, whichever of these categories you fall into. And even for a neurotypical person, let's talk about the difference. In a neurotypical person, some level of organization, some of us are just slobs.
Sure.
I have a cluttered house. I am not a good housekeeper. But if my family can't find something, so my husband and son both have ADHD, and my daughter has autism, learning disabilities, and ADHD as well. So when they can't find something, it's a real trick that I keep my mouth shut until they ask me how to find something, because it annoys me no end. 98.5% of the time, I know where the thing is. But I want them to start figuring things out, where things are.
I know where the thing is too, but there's no way on earth anyone else would ever be able to find it. I just know where.
But that's a different issue. So what
it's not an organization.
Where is the such and so? And I can say it's in that drawer, it's on that shelf, it's in that room. And when they still can't find it, and I walk into a room and I pick up a book and the thing they want is under that book, exactly where I told them it was, and they still can't find it. And so for me, this is a key executive functioning piece, that not only do I know where it is, I can visualize it well enough. This is the difference, that I can give them exact directions on how to find it. But all of them have this crazy, prideful thing that they should be able to, and I said the dirty word should, that they can find things without asking me, even though all of us know it's not true, because I'm the only one with a functioning prefrontal cortex in our family.
Yeah, we only have one of those in the house too. Not me.
Right. So how do we manage this? And so one of the key things, and this sounds so trite, but unfortunately it's really true, is that everything has to have a place and everything has to go in its place. And someone is greeting us. Hi. So
yes, the equality, great friend of the channel.
Super. So glad to have you. And so when COVID came, this became even more important, because stuff that they would normally have had at school, they now had to be able to find at home, like their notebooks and their pencils and, crayons for younger kids, and then their laptops and, their headphones. When COVID came, kids had to have school-like spaces set up for them. And it wasn't like they were going to take class in their bedroom one day, in the living room another day, and the kitchen table another day. One of the really important things we learned is there had to be a setup. You had to have school in the same place at the same time with all your school stuff organized. And for, say, a work at home person, so in my family, we had 4 people working at home.
Oh boy.
I had this office, which is a small private room with a door. My son took my big family office, and he could set up his computer on my big desk. My daughter had a small study off the kitchen because she was studying to be a pastry chef and needed access to the kitchen. And my husband took our family room with our 60-inch TV plus 2 more computers that he could set up on a table. So we had 4 of us set up in different spaces, and we all needed to have our own individual space with our own individual needs arranged. Mm-hmm. And if we didn't have it organized that way, then life fell apart immediately.
Yeah. It was a rough time. Fortunately, in Utah, we didn't have, they went back to school fairly quickly. But we did have a few months, and it was not a good time for me.
No, very difficult. And in my Instagram and on Facebook, I was posting a couple times a week about how to organize your spaces to help your kids cope with that at home time.
Yeah.
But as time has moved on, even as kids have gone back to school, one of the things we've learned is your kid doing their homework? Well, they're not going to do their homework if their laptop is in their bedroom, but their pens and paper are scattered in different places around the house.
Yeah.
If they're not allowed to have their computers in their bedroom, maybe because they're younger, whereas, at the time my son was in college, he was home for 10 months from college. He took at-home classes for 10 months.
I would not have done well.
Yeah, it was very hard. He was taking both synchronous and asynchronous classes. If we didn't have a station set up for him, just like my clients who were in high school at the time, he wasn't going to get anything done.
I cannot have that much. I struggle just with my working from home. There's the pros and cons to it. I can work from anywhere. So when I'm out with my kids and I need to get some things done, like I can do that in the summertime when they're out of school. I can work from the pool deck while they're at swim team. But it is a struggle for me to not just stay in my room with my laptop and actually come down to my office where I know I'm going to be a lot more productive.
Exactly. So I'm not in my bedroom. I'm in my office. Yeah. Right.
Well, so let's look at kind of a working definition here because
of what?
Of organization. So here's what I've got. The ability to create and maintain systems to keep track of information or materials, or in short form, having what you need when you need it.
And where you need it is the only thing I would add.
Okay.
That's a perfect definition, except I would add where you need it. Because what if you go to that pool deck or the coffee shop and your go bag is packed with everything you need to complete your work? And so if you don't have a go bag that's complete with access to all the materials you need, you can't get your stuff done, whether that's a teen finishing an assignment or an adult who can work remotely.
Great.
So I really recommend to families that they set up a homework station at home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it can be in a public living room, dining room situation. For a teen, it might be in their bedroom, but it must have everything they require. That can include notebooks, that can include paper clips, that could include pens and pencils. It obviously includes their device, whether that's a laptop or an iPad, because schools now are supplying kids. I have several kids who are supplied with iPads. It used to be Chromebooks, now it's iPads. So they have to have the correct cables available to connect to things, their headphones, and it has to be in a location where everyone expects that kid or adult to go and do their work.
Right. So we have kind of two. So I've got one in 8th grade and one in 11th grade. My older son, we were just commenting about this last night. He's been sick the last couple of days. And today he was like, I got to go back. I do not want to stay home from school. And I was like, who are you? Because he has finally realized that going to school and getting his work done there is better than not. And this was a kid who spent half of junior high, being the master of switching between tabs of games and what he was supposed to be worked on in class and, just never did any work. So he has come a very, very, very long way. So he's got a desk in his room where when he has homework that needs to be done at home, he does it there. But 90% of the time now he's getting done everything that he needs to at school. He'll stay after school or he'll go during lunch or, if he's got free time in one class, he's working on homework from another. It's blows my mind. I never thought we would get there. So here's the ray of hope for you parents or like because my 8th grader is currently in the position where my older son was a few years ago, where we're like, I don't know if we're gonna graduate high school. So we have hope. The 13-year-old, I have to be sitting there right next to him in order for him to do. Has always been the master of looking like he's busy. So, he does his homework at the kitchen table, and I'm either sitting right next to him, or I am, working on dinner and checking in, and I have to help him make his lists, and we have to sit there and go through it item by item. If we were to send him into another room where there wasn't another person, he would do zero work. He's very, very work averse. So, what works for one kid doesn't work for another, and it flows and it's flexible.
Yeah.
And
so that's not an organizational question, though. That's task initiation and other self-monitoring questions.
But when we're talking about having places set up, we have multiple places set up in our home.
Right.
We have a little cubby that has all the pencils and calculators and extra paper and whatever by the kitchen table, so that he has what he needs there. And the older son has his set of stuff up on his desk in his room.
The other piece I want to say about that, though, is that it's important to let the teen or young adult have input into how that's organized. Because a big piece, like you said, your son works at his desk. I hated working at a desk.
Oh, yeah. I worked on the floor of my bedroom.
Sat on the bed or on the floor. It's really important that adults don't impose their idea of organization or workspace on their teen. So sitting on your bed with music in your headphones is perfectly acceptable as a workspace, as long as there's proof of completion. So as long as the work is getting done, a parent has to accept that sitting on the bed with music on, working on their laptop, is a perfectly acceptable way to do the homework.
Yes.
And that's very difficult for many parents who want to be, I'm going to use the word rigid, and say you have to sit at your desk, it has to be quiet, because they had rigidity imposed on them.
Sure.
And I want to say, within the bounds of organization, we have to have flexibility, which is what you're demonstrating. Your older child works on his desk independently in his room. Your younger child needs body doubling. An adult supervising to make sure that he's staying on task. So there's a piece here where parents also have to listen to the kid and say, when the kid says, I need music and to lie on my stomach on the floor, as long as that work is showing done, parent says, okay.
Yeah. And I think, it's important for us to give our kids opportunities to figure out what works for them, right? Yes. Provide them with some options. So, when my son was trying to organize his desk materials, I got him a few different types of containers to keep all his stuff in. I was like, which one of these do you like?
Great.
Which pens do you like? Here, pick what and so he could set up his space the way he needed to. And, okay, if that's not working, let's try, my other son he does just a little bit of homework. He's only in 3rd grade. So the homework is just read for 20 minutes. And then he does a little bit of math on his iPad. He will sit on a spinny chair that we got him for Christmas and spin while he's reading, which, I'm not a person who gets motion sick, but I don't think I could be, those things go fast. He's like, not just like teetering spinning. He's like spinning like a tornado while he's doing his stuff. And we have a variety of little like wiggle seats that he can put on the floor. He's not a sit, but we do this as adults. The popularity of walking desks and standing desks and being able to move and adjust and do the thing, figure out what works for you. But our kids have to have the opportunity to figure that out so that they can then learn that skill on their own.
Going back to organizational strategies, again, I have a client who used one of those mailbox multi-slot things that you can get at Target or Office Max or whatever sort of office store you have near you. He put and this is important, we'll talk about color coding in a minute. He put color coded folders in them. He didn't like a trapper keeper. He didn't like binders. So we had color coded folders in this, multi stand on his desk. And as he, worked on assignments, math went in the red one and English went in the green one and science went in the blue one. And that worked for him on his desk. Other students, right, who are working on their computers, instead, we worked on setting up a directory in their computer. And we set up a file called homework. And under homework, we set up files called English, math, science. And they could access that through their computer. And any homework they did went under the correct file. So English homework went in the English file. Math homework that they could write about went in the math file, science homework, etc.
Well, I think it's really important to teach our kids how to digitally organize things because it's not something they teach them at school. I mean, I was just talking with my sister about this last week. Her kids, they do 90% of their work at school on a Chromebook, and they're in 2nd and 5th grade, right? So, but they aren't teaching them typing. So the kids are, and I was like, so over the summer we're doing typing skills, but same thing comes with, organizing our computer files. Exactly. You can't find the document you're looking for. This is the reason why I like the Apple system over anything else, is because of the little search button. I can find anything if I accidentally put it in the wrong place. I can't find it on a PC.
I can find everything. I find everything. I've run my business off PCs for 40 years.
Sure.
So
it works. It does not work for my brain. The Apple system seems to click with my brain a little better.
So you have to teach your kids, if the school isn't, and I teach my clients how to set up those directories. Right. Some clients, they get worksheets and they're immediately lost. Scan them into the computer, save them into the correct directory. All right. Put into an IEP that all work as much as possible is only sent electronically, and teach them to save it into the correct directory right away. It works you can
walk into an elementary school classroom and pretty much pick out the ADHD kids just by their desks, right? They have no system. That was one thing that the 3rd grade gifted teacher that both of my boys had. We had this summer project where we had to build these little shelves, these shelf inserts out of foam board, and she would teach them how to organize their desks according to topic and whatnot. And it was amazing. Like, just teaching that skill. It's not a skill that they teach them in school. So a lot of kids pick it up on their own, or they come up with their own systems really easily. Our brains don't do that. So we got to find an outside structure, but find an outside structure that works for you.
And I put this in IEPs and 504 plans immediately, that they use color-coded folders, or you use one of those multi-pocket pieces that have colored or labeled folders, so that teachers don't just hand a kid a piece of paper that gets stuffed into a backpack, never to be seen again in that black hole, but instead,
and then they have to get a new one, and they have to do the packet over again that they've done half of because they can't find it, and then they're having a meltdown because they're redoing the same assignment 3 times. This didn't happen last week.
It gets put into a file folder that's labeled or color-coded. You've heard me say color-coded a few times. I'll talk about that again in a minute. And the teacher helps the kid put it in the proper compartment, in the multi-compartment. So we have one folder where English, math, science, whatever goes in. It's the teacher's responsibility to help the kid put it in there for an elementary school. It's the parent's responsibility at home. If they print out a homework assignment, it goes back in there, and that's where you turn in the homework assignment in elementary school. In middle and high school, if we're back into the computer directory, because any assignment is sent electronically and saved into the directory labeled homework or a directory labeled classroom assignments and divided by all the topics, English, math, science, social studies, computer science, whatever the electives are, because we have those set up and we have access to those, the student can save the assignments, do the assignments, and then email them to the teacher. But now we have Google Docs as well, where the teacher can send an assignment on Google Docs, the student can complete it, the teacher has automatic access, which for some types of assignments are even easier. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to talk another minute about color coding, especially in the elementary and middle school range. Mm-hmm. Now, I even have some of my adult clients using this who are using it in their business, at their jobs. The reason I'm really in favor of color coding is that one of the things we know, especially about neurodivergent brains, is that they need multiple kinds of cues. They need verbal cues. They need visual cues. They need kinetic or physical moving cues in order to manage information. And so if you always put information of the same kind with the same color, it becomes a habit, and you don't have to only rely on verbal or written information. Now you have a color. So if you're in middle school or elementary school and all your math goes in the red folders or the red pockets of your multi-compartment folder, and your English goes in green and your math goes in blue, then you're going to start, you see blue and you start thinking math. You don't even have to look for the word math. You don't have to say the word math. It's just another cue to keep yourself organized. And the same can happen at home. If you have math tools at home, such as manipulatives, compasses, other math tools, I'm going to recommend parents put them in a blue box or a blue bag or a bag labeled with blue tape. And that goes with the blue folders. And you're giving your kid an extra cue that's going to keep their brain organized.
I love that.
Okay. It's super helpful. You don't even realize how much it is until you start using a color-coded system.
And it's like we talked about last week with planners, that's something we've always done with our Google Calendar. And then with our home calendar is
color code.
Kid 1 is green, kid 2 is orange, kid 3 is red, mom is purple, dad is blue, whole family is yellow.
Exactly.
And it's always like that in all of the places. So, if they want to know where I am, they look for purple. If they don't have to look through every line on the calendar, they just have to find their color.
Exactly. But this is an organizational tool that families don't use nearly enough to help their kids learn to keep their stuff organized. This is English. Oh, it goes in the green folders. This is math. Oh, it goes in the red or the blue folders, whatever color your kid chooses. And you don't choose them. Let your kid choose them.
Yeah. So what we've done with our kids when they get to the point when secondary school, right? When middle school comes along and the demand for executive skills goes from here to here, right? So we sit down and we give them options of a system. Okay, here's a binder that can have a bunch of different folders in it. Here's just loose folders of different colors. Here's an accordion file that just has a different pocket for each thing. Which one of these things do you like? Which one do you want to use? That's the one we'll stick with. So I'm not necessarily, and then when we're putting their binders together, like I have the way that it would make sense for my brain. I would put it like this, but that might not be what works for my kids.
Exactly.
So, my middle son is now in 5 music classes at school.
Wow.
Yeah, he's doing advanced orchestra on the cello, concert band on the oboe, advanced jazz on the saxophone, beginning jazz on the drum kit, and then a percussion class, which has mallets, snare, and rack. So he has
So talented.
lots. Oh, his brain runs on music, but he has no organization. So he's just had all of his music just kind of put into his binder. I was like, we've got to make this so that you can find the music that you need. So do you want a separate binder for each instrument? Do you just want one binder and put dividers in, so we kind of had to talk through what's going to be the way that he accesses this, right? Do you need a separate binder for percussion because you're playing 6 different instruments in percussion? Like how his teacher organizes their music by printing each different piece on different colored paper. So that helps him to be able to find what piece they're currently working on. But he's in 5 different classes. So blue for concert band is different than blue for jazz band, right? So we needed to get it organized. The way I would have done it wasn't going to work for him. And he didn't want to carry 3 binders around. He wanted it all in one binder. I was like, okay, so should we separate it by class or by instrument? Because that's not necessarily the same thing for him. And then where do we want to put our technique exercises, our scales, our daily warm-ups versus the pieces we're working on in class versus the pieces that you're working on with your private teacher, right? So trying to figure out a system for him so that when they're in class and his teacher says, we're going to work on this piece of music, he can find it quickly. It was a process. And now we just sit down. They usually they get music at the beginning of every term. Occasionally they'll get a new piece, but we just sit down every couple of weeks and make sure that his most current music is on top and make sure it stays in those places. But yeah, it was a process and I had to step out of it, right? I had to step back and be like, well, we're just going to do it like this and let him, because his brain works differently than mine, let him figure out what made the most sense in his brain.
Brilliant.
So
brilliant.
I started writing down things for us to talk about. And I ended up kind of just coming up with a list of, moving on from kind of kids and school and organization and into us adults, things that I have issues with organizing or just thoughts I had about organizing. And I'll see what you have to say about it. So first one I wrote down is I love to organize. I love creating the systems, but then sticking to the system is the problem, right? Because it takes extra steps sometimes, which are boring and don't give dopamine. So while I may have the system for putting the mail away, it's going to take me an extra 2 minutes to put it in those spots. So it ends up just in a giant stack. And then in order to organize it, it's an hours-long project because I've let it go too far. So what are your tips on sticking to the beautiful system? I'm great at creating systems. That's what I do when I coach. I help people come up with systems. I can come up with amazing systems for other people to use.
Yep. Well, the answer to this
very well myself.
You really know the answer to this. So the answer is you have to attach dopamine to it. And that means reward yourself.
This was a conversation I saw in a group. I can't remember if it was in the 2E group or if it was in another ADHD group I saw the other day, where a parent was like, we've got this system, but it feels like they're just relying on creating a false sense of urgency. They're not actually doing absolutely
right. I was thinking of the same thing. So
it was in that group. Okay.
Yeah, I was in the 2E group.
Okay.
So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about rewarding yourself, which is different. So
yes.
For those of you who weren't in the 2E group, what she's talking about is that sometimes the only way a kid will complete an assignment or do something is if you kind of fake an emergency. Like we have a deadline, so you got to do it. And the kid won't do it. And I have to tell you, for many decades, that's the only way I would do things. I didn't do the work to the night before, sometimes the morning of. I never did anything in advance, and I'm not 2A. I'm a procrastinator. But the key thing is that this is not necessarily a healthy way to complete assignments, nor for adults to build habits, because one, it kind of gets your brain on an up and down cycle that's not healthy for your stress system, for your heart, for your anxiety. And second, you can't always have an emergency deadline.
Right.
And so this particular parent was asking, how do you help a kid? You have 2 weeks to complete an assignment, and it would be so much easier if we broke it down into small steps, and you did the first step by Wednesday, and the second step by Saturday, and the third step by next Tuesday, and the fourth step by next Friday, and then you got it done on time without having any stress at all. But the kid doesn't act like that. And a lot of us know adults who don't act like that either.
It's so hard to do that because my brain tells me it's not important yet because it's not now.
But let's separate that question from the question you actually asked me.
Right.
We can talk about both of them. But the question you actually asked me is, okay, I set up this great system and then I still don't do it. And there are two actually different answers to those two questions. I'll answer them both, but let's keep them separate. So you set up a great system, or you get a great planner, or you start your priority list like we talked about last week. I have a funny story to tell you about that.
Okay.
And then you don't take the 2 minutes a day to do the plan you set up. So the issue is, Nicole mentioned dopamine. And for those of you who are not aware of the role of dopamine in the ADHD brain, it's basically a neurotransmitter in the brain. And whether you're using video games or whether you're using food or drugs or whatever else you do, one of the things that we know about ADHD is they're more attuned to activities that give them that little squirt of extra neurotransmitter that makes them feel alive and excited.
And our brains don't produce as much dopamine for like those kinds of menial tasks, right? You don't get the dopamine, the satisfaction.
It's actually a little bit different. What happens is we habituate. And so we constantly habituate means we get used to, and it means we constantly need novel or new thoughts, activities, and routines because we get bored with the ones we're regularly doing. There's some really excellent research looking at the difference between neurotypical brains, ADHD brains, and people who have sensory processing disorder, showing where people habituate or don't habituate. In other words, get used to like a new noise or a new activity. So that's a little bit different. So one of the things is to reward yourself. Give yourself a cookie.
No, don't give yourself a cookie because then
it could be a metaphorical cookie. It could be a metaphorical cookie. Watch a video. It could be you call your best friend. It could be you report to your coach and you text them and you say, I wrote down my list of 3 priorities today. Yay me.
Yes.
And I write back and say, yay you.
Social dopamine.
Right? So rewarding yourself can take a lot of different attitudes.
So here's the thing I hear from a lot of parents when we say, okay, well, we've got to find a reward but then they're just doing it to get the reward. They're not.
And I'm saying, yay them. So when I worked with preschoolers, I would tell parents to reward them for flushing the toilet. And parents would say, no, they should just know to flush the toilet. And I said, you could reward them for a flush for toilet, or you could have poop in the toilet. What do you prefer?
Yes.
So you want poop? Or do you want flush?
This is what an analogy Dr. ADHD uses a lot, and he says, well, would you go to work if you didn't get a paycheck?
Exactly. I say that all the time to people.
Even no matter how much you love your job and you find it so fulfilling, you are not going to go to work for 8 hours every day, 40 hours a week if you're not getting paid at the end. So
ding, 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 ding. Right?
Intrinsic
There's
motivation is
nothing wrong.
great. Extrinsic motivation still works.
Perfectly fine. Especially if it's not a cookie and it's just a good job.
Well, and what we're doing when we're saying, oh, but they need to be intrinsically motivated, is we're now putting a moral judgment on these behaviors, right? Which is not where we want to be. It's you're not a good person or a bad person if you need to, give yourself a reward for putting the mail where it belongs. It is not a value judgment. It's not a moral failing.
You and I yelled at you. I scolded you, I'm going to say, a couple weeks ago.
I needed a lot.
For saying I don't have motivation and willpower. And I said, bullpucky, I said, you have plenty of motivation and willpower. You just have ADHD, which makes it hard to apply it.
Right.
It's not the same thing. You have plenty of motivation and willpower as perceived by the fact that you're raising your kids great. You're helping your husband run his clinic. We do this weekly podcast together. Plenty of great ideas, plenty of motivation. Your ADHD gets your brain off track.
Yes.
So we do whatever it takes, intrinsically, extrinsically, who cares, to help keep you moving forward.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to ask the question of that parent. Would you rather have poopy in the toilet or say, good job for flushing?
Right.
You choose.
Right.
You choose. I'd rather say good job for flushing and get rid of the poop.
Then you don't have a
It seems a no-brainer to me.
Right. And
so if it takes you texting me, I wrote my 3 priorities and I say, good job, Nicole. And that gets you to do it.
Right.
And I say we're onto something.
The thing is still done, and it wasn't done before with the I'm relying on my intrinsic motivation.
Because it's not that you don't have intrinsic motivation.
Right.
It's that your ADHD brain gets you sidetracked. So it's just like a train. Train is on the track, but if you don't push that little lever, it's going to go off on the sidetrack. It's not going to go straight.
It does. So many
it
side
needs extrinsic motivation to go on the correct track.
Yes. Okay, here's another one.
Go ahead.
Let's see if I can find it. Okay, getting stuck in the organization/analysis paralysis, right? Can't do the project until the space is organized. Can't organize the space until I have to organize this space before I can do this thing. I have to do this thing before I can do that. And back and back and back and back, and then end up frozen and paralyzed because the back and forth between trying to figure out prioritization and organization before task initiation.
So none of that has anything to do with organization. The last two words are the correct answer. It's not about organization at all. It's about task initiation, which we'll discuss next week.
So initiating the task of organizationing?
No, it's better to do it messy than perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have a whole hour just on that one.
I know. It's
so hard because all the rest of it is a way to put off doing the task. It's about anxiety. It has nothing to do with the task itself. And this is not an organizational question. This is a task initiation question.
I feel like for me, those all kind of end up overlapping each other so much. Is the prioritization, the organization, and the task initiation, right?
Yep.
I have all these things I need to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know which one's important, and I can't even organize my thoughts enough.
Okay. So organizing your thoughts is a little different. But what you are describing, first I have to plan this, then I have to organize my materials, then I have to go get something, I have to clean my space. That's all procrastination because you're not or initiating your task. That's clearly not an organizational issue. Organizational issues are, do I have my materials? Do I have my prompt or the question I'm supposed to answer? Can I write an outline to get my ideas out? Right? Those are organizational issues. They have nothing to do at all with what obstacles am I putting in my own way to stop me from getting started.
Okay.
That's a task initiation question.
Yes.
So if you see what we started this session with, we talked about, do you have all the materials you need? Do you have a space set up? Do you know what you have to do because you have your homework assignment or you have your work assignment, right? None of that has anything to do with task initiation. Now, once you have everything in place, if you still keep coming up with things that stop you from getting started on the work, that's a task initiation problem.
Yes.
Because it's better to do it messy than to not do it at all.
Right.
And that's very difficult when we're used to, I have to have everything set up just right before I can get started.
Yes.
So when I was switching from being a therapist to being a coach, a lot of us, and I see this in a lot of my colleagues now as I am more experienced in what I do, I have to have a perfect website. My website isn't very good. I have to have great landing pages so people will, click to get my handout and then sign up for a call with me. And it's not very good. It doesn't look very good. I have to spend a lot of time on Canva designing great
yeah, I can do that for so long.
None of that is organizational.
I know.
All of that is,
but it feels like you're doing something.
You are doing busy work.
I know.
None of that is an organizational problem.
Yeah.
None of it. Organization is strictly, are my papers where they need to be? Do I have my assignments online? Do I have all the materials I need? Do I have a procedure? So we talked last time, someone talked about, this is interesting. Was it in the podcast? I just spent 3 days in a Twice Exceptional Gifted conference.
Oh, okay.
And people talked about how to organize their thinking to do writing prompts. And we talked about using index cards and sticky notes. Oh, no, it wasn't our session.
We did talk about it. Yeah.
One of the parents I work with talked about index cards. Do you have the materials you need to get your thoughts out on paper? Those are organizational issues.
Yes.
But stuff you put in your way because it's not perfect, that's task initiation.
Okay. So I'm trying to think.
I'm just telling you, I have to leave in like 3 minutes because I have an IEP meeting to go to.
Oh, okay. Well, we should wrap up then. So
these are important questions, but do you understand the difference?
Yes,
I think task initiation.
Yes, I think there are. I mean, when you talk about like getting started on a thing, or I'm going to organize a room in the house, right? Or like there's crossover in the prioritization to organization step, and then the organization to task initiation step, where I will get stuck in a loop. And
our teens do it, adults do it, but I want to be really clear what the difference is between organization and getting in your own way because of task initiation.
But it's why all of the, we are talking about these executive skills weekly as if they are all different things. But I think it's also, we are always coming up with the overlap in between those things, right?
Absolutely.
The prioritization is part of the organization, which allows you to get to the task initiation.
Here's my funny story.
And
after we finished our session, the next day, one of my clients texted me that he had been watching And the planning versus prioritization was going to be super helpful. So when we had our session later that week, we spent the whole session doing our priorities list.
Awesome. I love it.
And so I just want people to know that this stuff really helps.
Yes, it does. And, keep showing up and keep listening. And if you have questions, you can send them to us privately, or you can put them in a comment on the video. I do check them, and we will address the questions and things that you are struggling with in future streams. We keep a list. We've got kind of to the end of February planned out with this executive skills series that we've been working on, and then we're going to move on to other topics and circle back, and it's all related. So nothing is off the table. If you have questions, send them our way.
You can reach me at
Susan.
at callcoachsusan.com if you'd like to schedule a free call, or at drsusanblumberg.com.
I need to put those in the show notes.
Thank you.
Myself a note.
And I'm sorry to run, but I have
You're good.
8th grader who has autism and behavioral issues and doing great.
Yay.
With his schooling, and we're planning a high school move soon. And we have his annual IEP meeting coming up.
Awesome. Well, Susan, you're amazing. Reach out to Susan if
How are you,
want
Nicole?
some coaching.
I love talking with you.
I know. It's fun. It's always a fun back and forth. So we'll wrap up just like that, and we will see you all next week on Tuesday. I'm hoping to do a Friday stream this week of a new series that seems like fun for Fridays, which is just going to be hobbies and hyperfocus. So whatever fun thing is stuck in my brain. Bye, Susan. Thank you. That's what we're going to be doing on Fridays, is our hobbies and hyperfocus hangouts, where I've got some fun things that my kids gave me for Christmas, puzzles and Legos and projects like that I'm just going to do while we chat. And then I also have some, whatever is currently grabbing my brain's attention, and we can just hang out on Fridays. So hoping to start that this Friday. If not this Friday, next week. I've got some stuff coming up later in the week that I'm hoping to work around, but that's going to be the next kind of weekly thing I'm going to do. So I just want to call you Koala because I love your equality name, but my tongue trips over it. So I'm calling you Koala out of love and honor. My kids have always been into Legos. My son got me one of the little flower ones for my office for Christmas. So I'm going to do that one. I might do that one first. And then I really love the Harry Potter Lego sets. I don't have any yet, but planning on getting some and putting a shelf back here. I've been kind of gradually organizing and making my office a little more fun. But yeah, so that's going to be the next Friday, or the next weekly stream I'm going to add. I have a few shorter kind of unboxing some new planners and notebooks and things that I'm hoping to put into a short video. Yeah, that's what's on the cards for the future. And I'm going to stop because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the stream, the ADHD is strong today. It is. My ADHD symptoms are greatly impacted by my hormones and by what's going on physically in my body. And two of those things are converging today to make it a high sensory, scattery brain sort of day. And that is something we will talk about in a future stream, is hormones and the impact for women in particular with ADHD, because there is more and more research coming out about that. But anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to end the stream. Thank you all for being here. If you're on replay crew, we love you too. Please make sure you do YouTubey things to please the algorithm gods, and hopefully we can continue to grow the channel. I have some goals. I don't know how to achieve them, but you guys can help. Remember, you are not alone. You are not broken, and you are doing better than you think you are. And have a great week. If I don't see you before next Tuesday, but hopefully I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.